Hey y'all, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is when you're watching this. My name is Ruth, and I am a certified personal trainer and movement teacher. Today, we are going to move through a short class focusing on foot and ankle mobility. These are parts of the body that often get neglected in our movement practice, but they are so important for many of the exercises that we do, as well as just moving through the world on a day-to-day basis with ease and comfort. I am just going to get right into it. The only piece of equipment that you need is a small hand towel rolled up. There's lots of exercises that you can do with props, but I wanted to make this as accessible as possible today. So we're going to start standing in about a hip width distance stance and just take a moment to arrive on your mat and arrive in your space. So let's just take a few deep breaths together. A big inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth or the nose. A couple more like that at your own pace. As you inhale, think about sending the breath all the way down to your belly and expanding 360 degrees through your torso. And exhale completely, allowing yourself an audible exhale if that feels good for you. Last one here, big inhale together. And exhale, release. Bring your focus into the feeling of your feet on the floor. So just noticing what that feels like, maybe slightly swaying side to side, and just receiving the feedback from the floor on your feet. Notice if anything is coming up, if you have any discomfort or pain in your feet and ankles right away, and just being mindful of that as we move through this practice. You might want to take a slightly wider stance here to offer a little bit more support. And we're just going to start by lifting one heel and then the other. I don't know if you could hear that, but you might get a lot of snap, crackle, and pop going on here. There are 26 bones in each foot, so there's lots of opportunity for there to be some sensations and some noises as we start to warm up the feet. So as you lift one heel and then the other, pressing the toes into the mat as much as feels appropriate for you. So maybe you want to go really gentle with it. Maybe after a long day, you have a desire to really press your toes in, whatever works for you here. Starting gentle and maybe working your way up if that feels good. And last one, each side here, lifting a heel and then the other. And then we're going to bring both feet back flat to the mat, and we're going to lift both heels at once. So lifting up and releasing. You might like to take a slight bend in your knees here to help with balance, and do whatever you need to do with your arms as well to help you balance as you come up high on both toes. Even though you are pressing your toes into the mat, try not to dig your toes in here. So really try to find a balance point. We'll just go two more here. And last one, maybe holding up here for a moment, finding your balance, maybe letting yourself lose your balance a little bit and release, shaking it out. Let's come back to our hip width distance stance, and we're going to work on moving the toes individually here. So our toes are often smushed together in our feet, but they were designed to move individually. So we're going to start with pressing all toes into the mat, and then we're just going to lift both of our big toes. So pressing all four of the smaller toes into the mat as we lift the big toe, and then we're going to switch. So we're going to press the big toe into the mat and lift the other four toes. And we'll alternate between those two. So pressing all the smaller toes into the mat, lifting the big toe, and then pressing the big toe into the mat, lifting the smaller toes. You might notice that when you lift the smaller toes, maybe the pinky toe wants to stay down. Maybe they don't all lift up at the same height, but just working on that. These things take time. A couple more like this, alternating between the two positions. And now bring all the toes back down to the mat. We're going to try to drum the toes on the ground as if we were drumming our fingertips. So starting at the outside at our pinky toes, we're going to lift everything up and then try to drum everything down. You might not actually, very likely, won't actually be able to individually drum each toe down, but just looking for that sensation of one by one, bringing your toes back down to the ground here. Always bringing your focus back into your breathing and being mindful of how everything is feeling here. Couple more like this. And then finding stillness, maybe shaking it out here. We're going to take a slightly wider stance and we're going to bend a little bit into the left knee and start to circle around the perimeter of that left foot. So lifting and circling, almost like you are putting out a big cigar on the ground with your foot. I don't know why we were all smoking cigars in this mobility practice, but that visualization might help here. And you can make this as gentle or as intense as you like. You could take a wider stance and bend more into this knee to up the intensity, or just keep it super gentle. Let's change directions here. At this point, the snap, crackle, and pop has stopped. So I think I've worked all that out of my feet and ankles. Oh, never mind. Keep breathing here. Last one on this side. And releasing, bring your feet back in, maybe a little shake in between. And then we'll do the same thing on the second side. So taking a slightly wider stance, pressing your weight more into your right foot, bending slightly into that knee, and then taking those loaded ankle circles on the second side. Continue to breathe into this. This kind of work might seem a little bit boring, but it's really key to focus on these less glamorous exercises in order to move more comfortably throughout our day, and also to be able to perform some of the bigger, more exciting lifts and things like that. Let's change directions if we haven't already. Circling around the perimeter of the foot. Keep breathing into this, pressing as much or as little into this as feels appropriate for you. Last one here, and we'll release, shaking it out. Now we're going to practice some dorsiflexion, so bending the foot towards the leg here. So we will bring our left heel to the floor slightly in front, and we're going to lift the toes up towards the ceiling and then scrunch the toes forward. Lift the toes towards the ceiling and then scrunch forward. So we are flexing at the ankle as well as separately flexing and extending the toes here. Scrunching the toes and then lifting, pressing your heel into the floor and pulling your toes up towards the ceiling as much as feels appropriate for you. Theme of the class, theme of all my classes, is always to do what feels good for yourself here. And then maybe finding stillness here, really dragging that heel into the mat and hinging forward, getting a bit of a stretch into the calf here as well. And release. We'll switch sides. Right heel comes to the floor, and we will flex and extend the toes as we keep the ankle in dorsiflexion here. Keep bringing your focus back to your breathing. Again, digging that heel into the floor and pulling the toes up towards the ceiling as much as feels appropriate. Maybe you're in the mood to really challenge everything, or maybe you want to go super gentle. And then let's find stillness here, really digging the heel in, pulling the toes up towards the ceiling and hinging at the hips to get a deeper stretch up into the calf as well. And release. Let's shake it out here. I'm going to grab our little towel here. So I have it rolled up pretty tightly. I'm going to bring it to the mat and we're going to lift our toes up onto the towel and we're just going to step side to side on the towel with our toes elevated. So this is stimulating the bottom of the feet with the texture of the towel, as well as continuing to work on that dorsiflexion of the ankle. Keep breathing into it, just walking side to side here. You could use a bigger towel if you wanted your feet to be a little bit more elevated. And we'll step off the towel and move the towel back a little bit. And we're going to now work on some plantar flexion. So we're going to bring our right foot back and turn so that the tops of the toes are on the top of the towel. And we're just going to press into this. You could also do this on the floor. Here, the towel provides a little bit of cushion. We're bending into the left knee here and breathing, maybe finding stillness if that feels good for you here, or you could keep this dynamic by bending and straightening the knee. And then we're going to turn this foot. So now the toes are standing on it regularly. And we're going to continue with bending and straightening this knee. So you may feel sensation in the back of your calf here. Again, you can keep this dynamic by bending and straightening, or you can hold here, breathing into this. I like to picture sending breath to the area of the body where I'm feeling sensation, if that is a helpful visualization for you. And then we'll come out of this on this side, shake everything out, and we'll do the same on the second side. So finding that plantar flexion on the second side. So the tops of the toes are pressing into the towel and bending into your right knee here, bending and straightening. Keep pressing the top of that foot, top of the toes into the towel as much as feels appropriate. And maybe finding stillness here, breathing into the places where you feel sensation. And then we'll release and turn the foot, finding our dorsiflexion variation here, stepping on the towel, and then bending into this knee, maybe feeling sensation in the back of your calf. Always bringing your focus back into your breathing. This would be a good routine to do at the end of a long day, especially if you wear work boots or you're on your feet all day, or you could do it at the beginning of the day. And release from this side. I'm just going to set the towel aside here. And maybe shake everything out a little bit. We've got to come down to the floor. So let's move through a vinyasa here. This is a foot and ankle mobility class, but the rest of the body deserves a little love too. So coming to the top of your mat, grounding down through your feet. Let's take a big inhale, arms up overhead. Exhale, coming down to forward fold. Maybe bending into one knee and then the other, getting a bit more of a stretch in the back of your legs. And then we'll plant the hands, step one foot back and then the other, plank pose here. You could come down to your knees right away, and then we'll lower all the way down to the ground. I'm not going to bring my chest down because I don't want the microphone feedback. And then we're going to press up into a back extension, lower back down, and we're going to press into a kneeling pose here. So we might need to scooch forward a little bit here. We're going to move into a bit more of an intense exercise here called a little toe squat. Not called a little toe squat, it's called a toe squat. So in this kneeling position, we are going to tuck our toes here and just sit. So it is up to you to determine the intensity of this exercise. If you lean forward, it will be less intense. And the more you lean back into it, the more intense it will feel. So we are pressing toes into the mat and just finding stillness here. This is also going to be a bit of a stretch for your quads if you are leaning backwards. This might feel very intense, so please honor where you are at today. You can bring your fingertips down to the mat here and just breathe into this position. You could hold here for as long as you like, but if you're ready to come out of this pose now, we can release. Let's come to all fours here, and we'll send the right leg long, toes tucked, and we're just going to shift back and forth here, pressing that right heel back. So more dorsiflexion here, as well as a calf stretch. Pressing into the big toe as you come forward and breathing into this. On this last one, maybe we'll hold back. So really pressing that right ankle backwards, getting a deep stretch here. And then we're going to release, shake this out, and we're going to step right foot forward to come to a low lunge here. So we're looking for this front shin to be approximately vertical, so straight up and down. And from here, we're just going to shift forward and back. You could also bring your fingertips to the mat. You could use blocks here, but just pressing forward and back. You could also tuck your back toes to up the intensity for the left foot as well here. Always just working with how you're feeling today. Last one here, maybe you hold forward here, breathing into the areas where you feel sensation. And then bringing your hands down to frame the foot, step this foot back, maybe shake your tail feather, and we'll send our left leg long. Same thing on the second side here, so shifting back and forth, pressing that heel back, pressing your toes into the mat, and breathing. Even though this is foot and ankle mobility, the rest of the body is still present. So just checking in, pressing your hands into the mat, really pressing the mat away from you, checking that you're not sinking into your shoulders here. Think about drawing your belly button towards your spine to keep your core engaged. Last one here, maybe holding back, pressing that heel back as much as feels good for you. And then we'll come back to all fours, little shake here, and we'll step left foot forward, finding low lunge on the second side. We can bring our hands up or down on the mat or on blocks, and we're just shifting back and forth here. Breathing into this, maybe tucking the back toes as well. We're getting close to the end of practice, so allow that to inform how you're approaching these exercises. For some, they might like to up the intensity, knowing that we're coming close to the end. For some, they might like to start to really cool it down, really back off. Whatever's good for you here. And on this last one, holding forward, breathing. And then placing your hands back on the mat. This time we'll step back to downward dog. Just getting a nice stretch all up through the back of the legs, maybe pedaling the feet out here. Quite a few moments in this practice to get a calf stretch as well. Our calves are pretty close in proximity to our feet and ankles, so they can impact how we're feeling there. Take a deep breath. And let's walk the feet and hands up to meet each other in the center of the mat, finding forward fold. I'm going to turn so that you can see me here. We'll take the feet about mat width distance apart, toes pointed slightly out, heels pointed slightly in. We're going to sink down to yogi squat just for a moment. And then let your glutes come all the way down to the mat. We're going to grab our towel again here and place our left ankle on the towel. Right leg can just be tucked in or can be out to the side, whatever's more comfortable for you. And we're just going to flex and extend here. I'm going to fold my towel in half again to elevate my foot a bit more. So flex and extend the foot. And then we're going to take ankle circles from here. So the reason I have my ankle elevated is so that I have space to find the complete articulation of this movement. As you're circling your foot around, think about spreading your toes out from each other. Let's take it in the other direction here. Continuing to bring your focus back into your breath. Last one on this side. And shake it out. We'll switch sides here. So right leg extends, bring the left leg in, and we'll start with just flexing and extending. You could do any of these exercises on their own. I like to sit down on my yoga mat at the end of the day and just kind of intuitively do whatever feels good for that day. And the more you practice, the more you will feel comfortable in deciding what that is for you on any given day. Let's take the ankle circles now. So finding the circles on the second side, nice and slow and controlled here, looking for the full articulation of the movement, thinking about spreading your toes out as you circle your foot around. Keep breathing. And let's take it in the other direction. Last exercise here. Last one. And release, coming to a comfortable seat. And let's just take a moment to integrate the work that we've just done. Might not be the most exciting class that you've ever taken, but foot and ankle mobility is so key to our daily movements. And I feel like the more you do mobility work, the more you realize how important it is. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate all of you here and all of you who come to my in-person classes. Let's take a moment to just sit and observe the body. Notice anything that feels different now than it did at the beginning of our session. And let's end class together with one big inhale, arms up overhead, and exhale, hands to heart.